I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Let's take a trip back, shall we? Let's travel back to 1993, the year America was still riding the euphoria of winning the Cold War. Bill Clinton had just moved into the White House, promising a bridge to the 21st century. The World Trade Center stood tall in Manhattan, though it had been shaken by a bombing in February that killed 6 people. A dark hairbringer nobody wanted to acknowledge. Michael Jordan was untouchable, leading the Chicago Bulls to their 3rd straight championship. In music, grunge had exploded from Seattle's underground into every teenager's bedroom. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden were the soundtrack of teenage angst. But pop still ruled the airwaves, with Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, inescapable on every radio station. At the movies, Steven Spielberg was bringing dinosaurs back to life in Jurassic Park, shattering box office records. Schindler's List would remind us of humanity's capacity for evil. Miss Doubtfire had us laughing, while The Fugitive kept us on the edge of our seats. The X-Files premiered that fall, tapping into America's growing distrust of authority, its fascination with conspiracy, and its fear of the unknown lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life. It was a year of contradictions, optimism mixed with unease, prosperity shadowed by violence. The siege at Waco ended in flames. The Menendez brothers' first trial captivated a nation learning to consume tragedy as entertainment. America was beginning its long, strange courtship with true crime, though we didn't quite know it yet. But if you drive south from that gleaming, confident America, past the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, down through the Boot Hill of Missouri, and across the Mississippi River, you'll find a different country altogether. West Memphis, Arkansas. At the time, population 28,000, a working class town clinging to the western bank of the Mississippi, just across the river from Memphis, Tennessee. But a world away from Beale Street's blues and Elvis's Graceland. This was a place built on the back of the railroad and the trucking industry, where Interstate 40 and Interstate 55 intersected in a triangle of asphalt and diesel fumes. A crossroads city, a pass-through city, where people came and went, but few stayed, unless they had no choice. The landscape was flat, delta country. Former swampland drained and cleared, leaving behind rich black soil and a humid, oppressive heat that hung in the air like a wet blanket from May to October. Cotton fields stretched out beyond the city limits. The Mississippi River, just a quarter mile away, was a brown, churning presence that periodically reminded everyone who was really in charge when it rose and flooded. The economy was service jobs, warehouse work and manufacturing plants, the local steel mill, fast food restaurants lining the interstate, truck stops where men with road-weary eyes drank bad coffee at 3 a.m. The median household income hovered around $20,000 a year, well below the national average. Many families were one paycheck, one medical emergency, or just one bad day away from disaster. West Memphis was a place where people worked hard, went to church on Sunday, and held tight to tradition. In 1993, the Bible Belt still had a firm grip here. Pentecostal and Baptist churches outnumbered stoplights. Good and evil weren't just abstract concepts. They were real, tangible forces at war for people's souls. And when something terrible happened, when darkness came to their town, everyone needed an explanation. Everyone needed someone to blame. On May 5th, 1993, in a patch of woods called Robin Hood Hills, a scraggly grove of trees behind a trailer park where kids went to play. 3 8-year-old boys went missing. The next day, their bodies were found. What happened next would become one of the most controversial criminal cases in American history, even to this day. A story that would span decades, divide communities, and force us to confront uncomfortable questions about belief, justice, and the monsters that we create and the monsters that actually might exist. This is the story of the West Memphis Three. And on that note, I would like to welcome all of you to another episode of Rise to Liberty. Today, we will be looking at the very basics of the West Memphis Three case. It is my intention, anyways, to at least be able to begin this and hopefully last the whole time without inserting my own personal opinion. Or if I do insert my personal opinion, I will make it known that it is my opinion. One thing that I ask of all viewers as we are going through this, I think this is going to be a fun little thought experiment for everyone. And I think it will kind of surprise you where you land at the end of this. This is not going to be the only episode, by the way. This is just the basics of the case. This is an incredibly complex and multifaceted case. So we kind of just need to get the timeline and the facts that everyone does agree on just out of the way. So what I would like all viewers and listeners to do while we're working our way through this case is start from a standpoint that the accused are actually innocent. And I'm sure some of you already have your minds made up, as do I. The reason I ask this is because I would find it interesting to be able to see where everyone lands after taking the position that they're innocent and listening to all of the evidence and then finding out where we end towards the end of this series. So that's why I would ask you to start learning about this case with that in mind, because there really is still a rift between people who believe that they are innocent and people who believe that they are guilty. Just to be upfront and forward, I am of the belief that they are guilty. However, we should give a fair look at the actual facts of the case. I have done this personally. Now, I want to present what I've found to the rest of you. I want to see what you all think. Kind of just see where we end up. So, let's get started into this, shall we? Let's see. Let's hit some comments real quick. Let's see. Nice to hear good music instead of some countdown with Donkey Kong country music. Right. I completely agree. Jurassic Park was overrated. I actually kind of agree. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. And I want to take this second to say thank you so much for spending the evening with me for as long as this goes on. I don't plan on dragging this out too long, but I do want to be able to get through at least the basics and the timeline. We should be able to do that, within 90 to 120 minutes. So give or take. So let's see here. I have a whole bunch of tabs pulled up. Found a bunch of interesting things to be able to share with all of you fine folks. Okay, let's see here. So let's just start with a brief summary of the case. And we'll probably go over this a couple of times, but because there's different versions, there's different ways for people to be able to break down just the basics. One thing I will say real quick, one of the main sources of my information comes from William Ramsey's Abomination. I highly recommend getting a physical copy of this book. Once you have a physical copy, it cannot be censored. So I highly recommend it. This is a absolutely wonderful book. I'm very proud to have it in my collection. And honestly, I might end up buying some more just so I can give them away because I believe it to be that important of a book. I will also make sure that a purchase link is down in the episode description after this goes out. So we're going to kind of bounce back and forth between both sides, I think, to kind of try and get the perspective of both. So on that, let's start with somebody who's probably more critical of these claims that, or these accusations, whatever word you want to use. Somebody that's more skeptical of the accusations that were levied against these three men. So a brief summary of the case. So this summary is meant to guide the novice through the facts of the case. There's a lot more that we can dive into, which we will, but just for the basics, let's just discuss the things that people actually agree upon. On May 5th, 1993, on the night of a full moon in West Memphis, Arkansas, 3 8-year-old children, Michael Moore, Christopher Byers, and Stevie Branch, disappeared. They were last seen by family, neighbors, and schoolmates about 6 p.m. heading in the direction of a wooded area not far from their houses. The night and day proved busy for the police, and their initial search was somewhat limited. One of those who would testify as to last seen the children was also involved in the search. Their bodies were discovered the next day in a small patch of woods behind the Blue Beacon truck wash, not far from the interstate. The victims had been beaten, cut, bound, and sunk in a drainage ditch. Each child had dozens of injuries. At the time, authorities and media speculated whether the crime was related to other area child murders. Neighbors described ominous sightings of white and black vans. It was debated whether or not the discovery site was the site of the murders themselves. Its unique geography, bound on one side by a bayou that needed to be crossed by pipe, and on another by all-night businesses, made entry difficult. However, this is speculation in my opinion, but no blood was found, in spite of one victim bleeding to death. The discovery site became the only designated crime scene and was presented at trial by the state where the murders took place. There was a limited amount of physical evidence at the crime scene. Samples were taken from a large number of suspects, which can be used to match DNA. Fibers were collected from the victims and their clothes. Not all the children's clothes were recovered from the discovery site. 2 pairs of underwear and 5 socks were missing. A spot of wax was found on the victim's clothes. Other evidence was left behind at the discovery site. The physical evidence is listed here. Obviously, it's a link. And the crime lab findings can be found there, apparently. Perhaps most significant were a variety of hairs, including those found under the victim's bindings. The results of the DNA test have been released. One of these hairs has been recently found to match the stepfather of one of the victims, Terry Hobbs, although this match is imperfect. There's a reason why it's imperfect, because the same DNA found in Terry Hobbs's hair also matches 30 million other people. So, um, now this is my not only my personal opinion, but this is at least my understanding of DNA evidence is that DNA evidence is actually not primary evidence. It is secondary at best in a courtroom, especially at this point in time. Once again, we are talking about 1993. So this is not, the DNA testing of today. And even if it were, I mean, finding a stray hair from a man who the victim lived with is we'll get into that. The police began their investigation by canvassing the victim's neighborhood. Early on, the possible involvement of a satanic cult was taken seriously. I still think it should be taken seriously. Those interviewed in the search for the cult yielded contradictory or ridiculous stories. That's interesting. The investigation echoed an event of the more distant past, including the extensive amount of time chasing down rumors from children, including wild stories about a local teenager, Damien Eccles. So I don't know if I'll actually be able to make it through this because the framing of this is just, it is so biased. And I know for a fact that the author would turn around and say, no, of course there's no bias. I'm just, speaking based upon the facts. Well, that this framing particularly, the investigation echoed an event of the more distant past, including the extensive amount of time chasing down rumors from children. That's not exactly what they were doing. Granted, from every account that I can find, it does seem as though that the police were not super gung-ho initially. And kind of because of staffing problems. Once again, this is a lower middle class, right below the poverty line, blue collar kind of area. There's a pretty high crime rate compared to most places. Pair that with the smaller police force that isn't fully staffed, you're going to kind of run into some problems. But the very next day, when the boys never made it home that night, the police and many, many other members of the community really hit the ground running. Should they have probably done it that night? Sure. But no, I guarantee nobody thought that the discovery that they were going to make the next day was going to be what they actually discovered. So yeah, I honestly don't know if I can keep working my way through this. It's too biased is my problem. All of the sources that I do have a list of them. I will make that available. So anyone watching this at any point in time can go check out the sources that I used to be able to cover this. So if anyone's curious on their own, please go check them out. Once again, that will be in the episode description. Let's see here. Okay. Let's get through some more basic information. The victims. Stevie Edward Branch, 8 years old, 4 feet, 2 inches, 65 pounds, blonde hair, last seen in blue jeans, white t-shirt, on a black and red bicycle. Christopher Byers. Let's see. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to officially put together a slideshow, so bear with me on that. There's a lot of other things that took precedence, but here we go. Christopher Byers, 8 years old, 4 feet even, 52 pounds, light brown hair, last seen in blue jeans, dark shoes, and white long sleeve shirt. Michael Moore, 8 years old, 4 feet 2 inches, 55 pounds, brown hair, last seen in blue pants, blue Boy Scouts of America shirt, orange and blue Boy Scout hat on a light green bicycle. Time of disappearance, last seen by family members between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. on May 5th, 1993. Missing person reports filed at 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on May 5th, 1993. Last seen by neighbors between 6 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Now, the time of discovery of these boys' remains, the bodies of the three were found naked, sunken in a ditch between 1:30 p.m. and 3 p.m. on May 6th, 1993, just the very next day. Let's see here. In fact, I actually have something I was incredibly shocked to find. So this is the original. Well, they didn't have Amber Alert at the time, but basically the all points bulletin for missing children. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So what it says is it's Bolo from West Memphis AR. Please be on the lookout for 3 missing juvenile males. Description as followed. 1, Christopher Byers, white male, age 8, date of birth, blah, blah, blah. 4 feet 4 inches. Already some discrepancies. Light brown hair. Basically what we just what we just read. But this is a picture of the actual Bolo report that was sent out once the boys were officially reported missing. And I'd never seen that before, so I thought that was rather interesting to be able to share with you guys. Let's see here. Okay. I had a map. Let's see. Even with all the prep I did for the show, there's still just not quite enough time, unfortunately. So let's see here. Let me switch gears a little bit. Here we go. So I thought this was incredibly interesting. This is actually an interactive map that I found of all of the important locations within this case. So just to give everyone kind of an idea. So there's Memphis. This is about where we are in the United States. Literally just right across the bridge from Memphis. And there's that triangle I referenced in my opening of the asphalt triangle. So let's see here. So right here where this red caution sign is actually where the 3 boys' bodies were found. The bodies of Stevie Branch, Chris Byers, and Michael Moore were discovered in a drainage ditch in Robin Hood Hills. At this location, the lot on which the woods were situated has since been leveled and the drainage ditch diverted by the property owner. So I find this kind of interesting because there's a lot of discussion about exactly like where this water came from. Like it was, I've heard people say that it was, um, you know, well, even in the opening that I was reading, it called it a bayou. Not really. I mean, this is a farm drainage ditch. It's a overflow for the Mississippi River. This isn't, you know, a water source that's there all the time. It's just overflow. Anyone that's lived anywhere even remotely outside of the city, these are common all over the place. When I was younger, I swam in them. Not supposed to, but kids, you know? So I find it interesting that the framing that people are trying to make this water source out to be something that it's not. The reason why that this particular drainage ditch had so much water at the time is because earlier that year, it was a really, really wet spring for this part of the country. So the Mississippi River was a lot higher than normal, which fed into this water runoff. Because normally, most of the year, that ditch actually did not have any running water in it. So I find that incredibly interesting. You will hear people mention that some of the boys' injuries were caused by snapping turtles. Absolutely no snapping turtles will live in a river runoff canal. Like that's just not going to happen. Let's see here. Nope. Okay, so Robin Hood Hills, it was kind of just like a place really for the locals to hang out. It wasn't really developed. It's still not. It's as it sits right now, it's actually just an open field. It is owned by somebody. Let's see here. I only have so many hands. So it's kind of just an open field right now, kind of in a semi-industrial area. In fact, switch back over. Okay. This is kind of a pain in the ass, but it's worth it, I promise. Okay. Let's see. So this is kind of, or this is what it looked like back in 1993. This is an aerial view. Don't have my pointer. Right there, you can see in the middle of your screen, this is actually the drainage ditch. And then, of course, that bridge right in the very dead center of your screen, that's actually where the boys' bikes were found the next day. There was lead investigator. Bunch of super flattering pictures of Damien. So there's a better picture of the bridge itself, and you can actually see how high that water is. But look at that. It's brown water, just like the Mississippi River. Imagine that. So there's an aerial view of Robin Hood Hills. So it was within that asphalt triangle. The blue building you see is the truck wash that usually gets mentioned. So this is geographically what we're dealing with. easily a large enough wooded area for all sorts of shenanigans to go down. Uh, I, like many, you know, young kids, also played in the woods a lot. I had a blast. So it's not an incredibly abnormal thing, especially, you know, you're a young kid in the 90s. I mean, you don't, not quite old enough for a job, or maybe you don't want one, or, but you don't have a lot of money. You have a lot of imagination. Go play in the woods, get a little dirty. And that's kind of what it seems like these boys wanted to do. Let's see. No. Sorry, the website that I'm sourcing some of this stuff from, the um, They Were Innocent website, it's not very well put together, unfortunately. Um, Looks like it was put together possibly in the late 90s. Let's see here. There's a couple other. Okay, so here's kind of a wide angle view of what we're talking about. Ambest, Robin Hood Hills. Bodies were found there. The Blue Beacon truck wash over there. Let's see, that's a knife that was found. Here's an aerial. So, I mean, it's not really a huge area. But in comparison, I mean, those are full-size houses. So, still big enough boys can get in trouble in. Now, let's see here. Okay, so after missing for about 18 hours, the children were found bound by shoelaces, stuck in the mud. Let's see. Oh, it's not wide enough. Stuck in the mud at the bottom of a ditch. Chose from. Apparently, I actually didn't know this, but it kind of makes sense. There were more than just these murders of children in this part of the state. It kind of doesn't surprise me, but they're not super close together either. So, let's see. Okay, so it might be said that the investigation began with the missing persons report. The police log records, or the police log records a call from the Byers at 8:08 p.m. Wednesday, May 5th. This call was assigned to Officer Regina Meek. A notion is made that she responded on site at the Byers' residence, also at 8:08 p.m. Although not recorded on the police logs, over the next hour and a half, Meek went on to fill out the reports on the other two missing children. The immediate police response was anemic, which I think is a pretty good word to describe it, although seems a bit harsh. I mean, they were out there. Officer Meek and Officer John Moore spent a brief time looking for the children, and then there are no other notes of searching until 5:26 a.m. Officer John Slatter, interestingly searched at the discovery site. Officer Slater later explained that there are initially a miscommunication, and the night shift beginning at 11 p.m. was not informed of the missing children. I mean, that happens a lot. Once again, 1993, small blue-collar town, understaffed, makes sense. Let's see. The parents complained of the delay in recovering official help in the search. From John Mark Byers' May 19th statement, he is quoted as saying, "Before I left the house, I picked up the phone and I called the sheriff's department the second time. I said, 'Look, I've had one police officer out here helping me look for these boys.' I said, 'Now, I called once and y'all told me what to do, and I did that.' I said, 'Now I'm calling now, and I want to know why the search and rescue squad won't come out here and help me look for my boy.' When the morning police shift came on duty, the search moved into full force. A helicopter flew overhead. The bayou channel was dragged. I don't know why he's calling it a bayou. That's so weird. A list was obtained from the electric company of vacant houses, and they were being searched. The West Memphis Evening Times is published at 1 p.m. each day, and its May 6th edition described the frantic effort. And this is how they described it. Quote, "West Memphis police and volunteers from across the city began searching at daylight for 3 boys missing since yesterday afternoon. Volunteers would testify to combing the area on foot, on bicycle, and with 3-wheel off-road vehicles. The exact circumstances behind the discovery of the children is a bit vague. The initial police statements referred to Officer Mike Allen finding a floating tennis shoe in the ditch in the Blue Beacon Woods. Later, this was amended to say that it was a juvenile probation officer who found the floating shoe. On scene at the time of the discovery of the children were Steve Jones, probation officer, Mike Allen, detective, West Memphis Police, Diane Hester, West Memphis Police, George Phillips, West Memphis Police, and Billy Sanders, West Memphis Police." And then it goes on to list everyone that's involved, and that's a little bit too much detail, at least for this show. Okay. So we've kind of been bouncing around. Let's just kind of just lay it out. So in order, this is as the timeline goes. May 5th, 1993, Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore reported missing in the evening of the 5th in West Memphis, Arkansas. May 6, 1993, the bodies of Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore, all 8 years old, are found in Robin Hood Hills in West Memphis, Arkansas. Now, fast forward a bit. This is a huge leap in time. So May 5th to May 6th. May 6th, the boys are discovered in this overflow canal. The next important date is June 3rd. That's almost a whole month. June 3rd, 1993, Jesse Lloyd Miskelly Jr., 17, is brought in for questioning by the West Memphis Police Department. During questioning, he makes 2 statements, which implicates himself, Damian Wayne Eccles, 18, and Charles Jason Baldwin, 16. All 3 are arrested. So from May 6, 1993 to June 3rd, 1993, people like to frame this as if, cops weren't really doing anything. Except for there is a massive list of potential subjects or suspects. Let's see. This timeline is huge, unfortunately. Here we go. I wasn't going to, but I think I will actually read the entire suspects investigated by West Memphis Police Department and removed from suspicion. So between the bodies being discovered and, the first actual arrest being made, almost 30 days in between that. If the police weren't doing anything, or if they had just targeted some fine young boys who were just wearing black and listening to Metallica records, then why is there a suspect list almost a mile long? Being hyperbolic, but of course. Harold Allison, Robert Andrus, King David Samuel Beasley, Sir Michael Jones, Robert Birch, Kenneth Cagle, Brandon Callahan, Haston Glenn Burns, Larry Caesar, Gary Chadwick, Paul Patrick Champagne, Carol Tillman Coleman, Otto Bailey Jr., John Connolly, Steve Brown, Haston Glenn Burns, Charles Ray Carter, Richard Cummings Jr., Charles Michael Craig, Jesse Leo Davidson, Robert D'Angelo, Timothy Wayne Dotson, Ronald Keith George, Michael Headley, Danny Holbrook, James Horner, Jones Johns, Victor Johnson, Harold Stanley King, Bobby Laparade, I believe, Tracy Laxton, Daniel Leffler, Michael Leitler, Jeffrey Looney, Edward Lynn Lucas, James Martin, John May, John McNeely, Steve Menard, Charles Metz, Christopher Morgan, Charles Morton, Jerry Nears, Ricky Lee Murray, Jones Park, Jones Thrasher, Gary Poindexter. Awesome. He totally got picked on. Thomas Pauletta, Joseph Michael Renew, Lance Renshaw, Richard Renyons, Michael Scott, Arthur Seary, Jimmy Sellers, Steve Skaggs, Steve Tatum, Rufus Little Al Thomas Jr., Lonzo Troxel, Floyd Turner, Jones Valley, Christopher Wall, Bernie Warren, Donald Warwick, Michael Sean Webb, Jones Welch, Daniel Wilkley, Miles Woodall, and finally Tom Woods. I mean, holy hell. It's like, if any of you guys are familiar with the story before watching this, if you've watched Williams stuff or just watched basic like true crime, Discovery ID kind of surface level true crime slop, then it's always framed as if there was just no suspects. That there was just, these three boys at the time, men now, that there was just, that the police weren't doing their job, and they were able to find these three boys because they stood out of the crowd because they wore black and were a little different. No, the police were busting their ass on this. They had massive pressure from the community, not to mention the pressure coming from the families of these three boys. I mean, does anyone genuinely believe that these families were just sitting by for almost an entire month with absolutely no answers to who could have possibly done this, possible suspects? No, they were all over the place. Now, this is, let's see, I believe the Byers. This is, yeah, that's the Byers. it's just absurd to me that because everyone makes it seem as though the police weren't doing anything, they weren't asking questions, they weren't actually investigating. However, they just happened to come across these three ruffians and decided to target them for no reason. You can't. I mean, I guess you could do that technically, but even if it was just completely like profile um, targeting, I hate teenagers and that loud heavy metal music type of targeting, like that's they're not going to be held in custody based on that. There has to be something substantial. Otherwise, eventually when they get their lawyer, which they did, they would be let out because there was nothing to charge them with. Of course, yeah, you could make it up. That's not life isn't TV, people. Like that's just not how things work. I mean, this case was actually dragged out for a long time. It took almost a month to get an arrest. Um, Now, I will say, to play devil's advocate, there is a history of police forces, police departments, kind of finding a patsy, finding someone to blame this on, just to close the case. That definitely happens. Could it have happened here? Maybe. But why don't we get into the investigation itself and figure out exactly what was happening? So, once again, just to make sure we're clear, May 5th, boys go missing. May 6th, boys' bodies are found lifeless. June 3rd, Jesse Lloyd Miskelly Jr., 17, is brought in for questioning by the West Memphis Police Department. During questioning, he makes two statements, which implicates himself, Damian Wayne Eccles, 18, and Charles Jason Baldwin, 16. After those statements were made that implicated all three of them, all three boys at the time were arrested just based on those statements. So you can't tell me that the investigators didn't have some information by this point. Granted, there is going to be some information that is out in the public, right? But not all the information. In fact, there are very clear reports of the West Memphis Police Department clearly stating that there were certain details that they had learned from their investigation over that period of a month that they intentionally left out of the papers, that they intentionally kept quiet about. Because after the bodies were found, the police actually set up a tip line. People could call in with their tips. And what better way to be able to separate people goofing off, people, bad information, disinformation agents, whatever, people just trying to screw up the investigation for whatever reason, prank calls, all of these things. The best way to screen all of that is to actually withhold some information. And if somebody is able to provide you that information without it being known, then you can start taking that tip seriously. Okay, so the investigation. Let's see. See, we already covered that one. Sorry, this website is just, and there's good information on here. Not all of the opinions I agree with. There's good factual information on here, but this layout of this website is dog shit. Let's see. Let's see. There was a bunch of information about the searching that went on the night before they were found. Even a door-to-door canvassing spreadsheet. That's interesting. I've never seen that before. Be interested where those numbers came from, though. So based upon the an analysis of the door-to-door interviews. So this was the night that they were reported missing. The findings, a total of 526 residents were canvassed. This included 180 apartments in the Mayfair buildings and 346 houses. 11 residents were listed as vacant. 6 of these in the Mayfair. This is probably an undercount, and other vacant residents were listed as no answer or not listed at all. A total of 124 residents were no answer. The police had no response lists. Those houses that failed to answer with the initial pass, these doors were kicked in again. That's weird. It's knocked on, but okay, whatever. Like I said, this website's garbage. Reducing the no answer rate. Other residents were only queried once. 164 residencies were visited at least twice, usually because there was no answer the first time. Including all visits, 201 residents were listed as no answer. The number was reduced with repeat visiting. Interesting. 68 houses gave brief answers, and another 17 gave long answers. The questionnaire was filled out on 60 houses, just under a 12% rate. Another 4 residents had extended answers, as long as what one might expect on the questionnaire, probably related to the officer, but the best canvass street was Proctor Street, with questionnaires filled out for 10 out of 13 houses. Second was Ferguson with 11 out of 15. Worse was Mayfair North with 44 no answers and 43 no information out of 100 residents. So that is actually kind of interesting. Let's see. Okay, door to door. Now this is where I think it's going to get kind of interesting. This next section is called Running Down Rumors. Rumors and confessions. West Memphis had a population of 30,000, closer to 28. In spite of this, names and places recur often in this case. In some families, often played multiple roles, unlike, okay, that doesn't mean anything. Just get to the point. This section, in which rumors are traced, includes a large number of names, each person a link in the story, unlike the group of children in Marked Tree, who said they overheard Eccles confess. The source of other rumors was often elusive. Let's see. Deborah Oettinger testified as to seeing the missing children outside her house at 1309 Goodwin Avenue just before 6 p.m. She said she and her husband had to wait as the children passed behind her truck before they could back out of the driveway on their way to her mother's for dinner. Deborah's mother, May Bashire, I don't know, lived across town at 506 Balfour, along with Deborah's 14-year-old brother. Her brother Craig gave a statement about how he and a friend, John Graham, had 2 years ago seen 2 men in their late 20s or early 30s with red, white, and black paint on their faces dancing in Robin Hood Hills. In his statement, John Graham did not mention dancing and said it was 3 men in makeup carrying guns. The police used such statements as evidence of a cult gathering near the site of the murders. Oh, that framing is terrible. Um, it was actually a lot more complicated than that. It wasn't just like, oh, I just saw 3 guys in Halloween face paint carrying guns. It's clearly Satanist. The oversimplification of this is it's like when somebody is like trying to repeatedly skip in line, they're trying to get ahead of what's coming for whatever reason. And that kind of seems like a lot of people who believe that these 3 men are innocent. It's kind of what it feels like they're doing throughout the entire investigation, all the fact gathering and everything. They're just trying to jump in line before actually being able to look at everything. Let's see. Jacob, have you heard Chris Knowles talk about the druid aspect to the West Memphis 3? He did an interview with William Ramsey a few years ago about it. I have not heard that, but I bet it is incredibly interesting. Let's see. I'm just here to add humor in levity to Jacob's podcast. Pay me no mind. No mind paid. Let's see. They used music in so many ways because it was some kind of musical ritual or spell, in my opinion, that is still working today. Right. I mean, my personal opinion, like, I don't believe that this was a premeditated thing, at least as far as the victims. I don't believe were premeditated. It really does seem like a crime of opportunity to me. However, the manner in which they were brutalized had been premeditated. I just don't think that they were the intended targets. It really was just a wrong place, wrong time, and somebody with really sick intentions. Saw an opportunity and took it. Honestly, that's just the most logical explanation to me. The most simple is usually the correct one. So somebody, I mean, if this was like a first time assault like that, I don't know. That's pretty intense to having never ran that through your head in the first place, and then just one day decide to just brutalize somebody like that. That doesn't make sense to me. So the act itself seemed premeditated. The victims seemed like a crime of opportunity. And who knows exactly, because allegedly Jesse was drinking at the time. So who knows what the other 2 were exactly doing or consuming. And, that's definitely no excuse. I've been stoned and drunk plenty of times. I never got so far out of my mind that I could have crossed a line like that. I think it's people that already have the inclination to be able to do something like that. Like, all it takes is a little push, so I think it kind of just brings it out, but it's not actually the intoxication that does it. They already have the ability to do so. They just need a little lubrication, I guess. Let's see. There were a couple of really interesting things I highlighted. Okay, so May 10th is a date that I would like to focus on for a minute. We're going to take a look at William Ramsey's book, Abomination. Okay, come on. Okay, so May 10th, 1993. This is Damien Eccles' first interview. Lieutenant Sudbury and Detective Riggs. On Monday, Sudbury asked Eccles to come to the police station for additional questioning. Oh, actually, I guess so. That's his second round of questioning. Let's see. Yeah, so Damien's first questioning actually took place on May 9th with Sheila Stewart. The police decided to bring Damien Eccles into the police station for questioning. At noon, the interview began. Detective Ridge wrote down general information about Eccles. 5'8", 175 pounds. He had several tattoos. Domini, his then girlfriend, was tattooed on his right arm. The letters EVIL on the knuckles of his left hand. A large pentagram was tattooed on the center of his chest. All the tattoos were self-administered, and the police noted that the pentagram on his chest was particularly faded. Yeah, because he doesn't know how to do it. Eccles wore a necklace with a pentagram pendant. I thought that was rather interesting. That, in and of itself, by itself, innocuous. It doesn't mean necessarily anything. It's with Damien Eccles, it's all of these little tidbits put together. That's the problem. Any one of these things just by themselves, not an issue. Not an issue at all. But when you put it all together, it's a big issue. Damien Eccles told the detectives he dropped out of school in the 9th grade, but had passed his general education development or GED exam. He stated to police that he was at home at the time of the murders. When asked about his cult activities, he confirmed he was part of a group that included local residents Murray J. Ferris and Bob Loomis. Officer Ridge wrote in his notes, quote, he stated that his belief was there was a goddess and not a god. He stated that everyone in the group worked toward a divine light, and upon reaching that stage, they become like gods themselves. He had been a member of this group for about 5 years, he stated. Damien confirmed he liked to read books, and one of his favorite writers was Church of Satan founder Anton LaVey, author of the Satanic Bible. According to Officer Ridge, Damien said, quote, he figured that the killer knew the kids went into the woods and even asked them to come out to the woods. He, Damien, stated that the boys were not big, not smart, and they would have been easy to control. He also Damien felt that the killer would not have been worried about any screaming due to being in the woods and close to the expressway. He further stated that the killer probably wanted to hear the screaming. When asked by police who did the crime, Damien Eccles responded with one word: Satanist. During questioning, Damien offered information to the investigators that only the killer would know. Surprisingly, he said that the murderers had urinated in the mouths of the 3 boys. This evidence, as of May 9th, 1993, the evidence that the boys had been urinated on at all was unknown to the police at the time of this interview and would only be confirmed by the medical examiner after the completion of the autopsies. Damien also said that the penis was a symbol of power in Wicca. Not just Wicca, but across many different magic theologies. And that the number 3 was numerology it was number significant. I don't know why I'm so tongue-tied. It's been a long day. He also stated that the person who committed the crime, and okay, I got to just pause here for a sec because this is really odd to me. So he's being interviewed by the police, and he keeps saying these things like, "Oh, the killer probably did this. The killer probably did that." Like, okay, cool, dude. Like, you're a super edgy teenager. Like, whoa, dude, chill out. Don't cut yourself on so much edge, you little bastard. But it's just weird. Why does he keep saying shit like that? Well, the killer probably did this. He probably felt this way. This happened because this is significant to numerology. Like, that's odd, right? I mean, and this is coming from somebody who used to believe in this stuff, who used to practice this, this sort of stuff. So, I mean, if you're being brought into the police station for questioning regarding the murder of 3 kids, and you just start helping the police by saying the killer did this, the killer did that. Well, I know about this thing, and so that's a possibility. I don't know. It's really strange, right? Once again, keep in mind, start off with the these boys are innocent. Why would he keep doing that? If he's innocent, why would he keep doing that? Damien also said that the more innocent the victim would be, the more power the perpetrator would have received from the sacrifice. He added that the book of Revelations was his favorite book of the Bible, as the devil was handing out all of the punishment. When asked who he thought committed the crime, Damien suggested L.G. Hollingsworth, Dominique Tier's cousin, so his girlfriend's cousin. Coincidentally, Hollingsworth was also at the police station to be interviewed about the murders. The full transcript of the police notes is included below. So that was May 9th. It's just weird, right? And then he just starts pointing fingers at his girlfriend's cousin. All right, must have not gotten along. Okay, but the one standout bit of information that, since I learned it, and I learned it before I picked up this book, but knowing that Damien was aware that the boys were urinated on before the police knew and before the medical examiners knew. I guess you could say it's a lucky guess. I'm too cynical to believe in coincidence at this point. That is a detail known only to him at that time. That's yeah. Make of that what you will. So May 10th, 1993, the next day, Damien Eccles' interview Lieutenant Sudbury and Detective Ridge. On Monday, Sudbury asked Eccles to come to the police station for additional questioning. Both Lieutenant Sudbury and Brian Ridge conducted the interview. Their report reads as follows. On, May 10th, 1993, Damien Wayne Eccles, who is also known, or he was born as Michael Wayne Hutchinson, came to the West Memphis Police Department for an interview concerning any information that he may have concerning the above noted homicide. Present during the interview were Lieutenant James Sudbury of the Crittenden County Drug Task Force, myself, Detective Brian Ridge, and Damien Eccles. A subject description was filled out that contained information about Damien's residence, his vital statistics, and his family. At this point, Damien was not considered to be a suspect, and only general knowledge questions were being asked. Damien was very calm and even cold as he answered the questions concerning his background and any knowledge he may have had concerning the homicide. Damien stated that he was a member of a white witch group that he referred to as Wicca. Okay. He stated that his belief was there was a goddess and not a god. He stated that everyone in the group works towards a divine light. Upon reaching that state, they become like gods themselves. He has been a member of this group for about 5 years, he stated. I mean, what is the likelihood of a group like this existing in Middle America, in this part of the country, and specifically in West Memphis, though? I mean, it's just as likely to exist as not existing. But I do want to redirect everyone's attention real quick to this terrible website. I started this section of the discussion, rumors and confession. Let's see. So this Innocence website is, I guess, how I will categorize it, makes the claim that the reason why Satanism or the occult started coming up in the investigation is because they started hearing things from the local neighborhood kids, right? Like that was the source of the Satanism. But if that's true, or if that is the case, they completely left out the part where Damien himself directly names Satanist as responsible for the murder of these 3 boys. I mean, that's a pretty big oversight, don't you think? Like, it's just crazy to me. That's a pretty big detail. But apparently it was just neighborhood kids, lying or being mischievous or, just being dumb and confused, I guess. I don't know what they're trying to explain here. Let's see if I can pinpoint this real quick. On May 26, 1993, 18-year-old William Jones spoke to the police stating Damien Echols had confessed to him. A transcription of his statement became one of the few documents included as support for the search warrants. Yeah, I'm sure that was like the final nail in the coffin they needed after Damien already spilled his guts. So, like, I don't understand that. Let's see. Okay, right here. So, unlike the group of children in Marktree, which is a neighborhood, who said they overheard Echols confess, the source of other rumors were often elusive. That's it. They were just rumors, and they were often elusive. That's crazy to me. Let's see. Craig gave a statement about how he and a friend, John Graham, had 2 years ago, when he's making this statement, 2 years ago from this statement that he makes, that John Graham makes, seen 2 men in their late 20s or early 30s with red, white, and black paint on their faces dancing in Robin Hood Hills. Okay, cool. I'm so glad I heard a story about, some weird painted dudes hanging out in the woods 2 years ago. Like, okay, yeah, that is significant, but not in the matter of this case. However, the person writing this particular website is using this as the source of where Satanism came into the case. This is fucking laughable. Like, you couldn't be more biased and, in my opinion, dishonest if you fucking tried. Like, this is absurd. I know I'm kind of poisoning the well as far as, let's start with thinking these boys are innocent. I'm still trying, but I just can't accept that there's this much discrepancy between the way that people see this. Let's see. So next door to the Beshires at 504 Balfour was the residence of Ricky and Debbie McKay. Together, the officer Diane Hester, Ricky McKay, would haul off the discovered bicycles. The McKay's daughter, Meredith, would give Damien Eccles an alibi for the evening of the 5th. She stated she saw Damien Eccles and his family drive up to her cousin's house across the street at 505 Balfour at 7 p.m. on May the 5th. Her cousin, Stacy Sanders, was with her at the time and testified in court to seeing Eccles. Jennifer Sanders was at the house at 505 Balfour and testified that Damien and his family had visited. The Sanders had known the Hutchinsons and Eccles for a long time. Years ago, they had lived together. If Eccles was indeed there, Oettinger, not sure how you pronounce that last name, was having her supper across the street from him. 4 houses down the street at 408 Balfour was the home of Richard Simpson. L.G. Hollingsworth said he spent the evening of the 5th with Simpson, although Simpson denied it. Mind you, L.G. Hollingsworth is Dominie's cousin, Dominie being Damien's then girlfriend. One of 3, I believe. I think Damien had or attempted to get a harem going. So I just find this interesting that this is this person's justification for where the Satanism comes into the story. Like, this is the most stupidest thing. Let's see. On May 26, 1993, 18-year-old William Jones spoke to the police stating Damien Eccles had confessed to him. Jones stated Damien was a Satan worshiper. Okay, well, guess what? On May 9th and 10th, Damien had already admitted this directly to the police in their face. So by May 26th, this is not news. So Jones stated Damien was a Satan worshiper, but did not explain how he knew this. Because it's not a secret. That's how he knows. I'm sure everyone knew. And I'm sure Damien bragged about it. Jones went on to say that late in the evening on the previous Friday, May 21st, he questioned Damien about his rumored involvement in the murders. Everybody wanted me to ask him, so I asked him. And he said that he cut them and that, had sex with them, molested them, end quote. Damien allegedly went on to say he sodomized the victims and cut them with what was described as a 10 to 12-inch knife. Jones said he talked to Damien about the confession the next day, and at that time, Damien denied it. Yeah, of course he did. Oh, I was just joking. I was just goofing. Just new boot goofing. Yeah, look at him just goofing. Look at that. Look at him just goofing. Now, okay, I have made some pretty terrible jokes, made jokes at incredibly inappropriate times. one of my favorite things to do. But Damien seems to have a pattern with this, is the problem. He keeps confessing and then saying, no, 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 I was just joking. He does it over and over and over. And maybe he's just dumb like that. But it just seems weird. Once again, you take any of these instances that happen with Damien or any of the three now men, and you take it by itself, okay, yeah, that could be written off as just teen angst or he's being an asshole. But when you put these statements, repeated statements, and you compare that with what he said May 9th and May 10th, directly to the police's face, on top of that, also having knowledge, prior knowledge of what had happened to those boys before the medical examiners knew, it just starts painting a really bad picture. Now, a legitimate question: what are the odds that he could have had this information or made a lucky guess, and he really is just that big of an asshole that he would do these things? And I do think he is that big of an asshole, especially back then. But I think this is kind of like reveling in his accomplishment, right? He's throwing it in their face. That's my opinion. I think that this is him teasing being caught, like, oh yeah, I totally did it. No, I didn't do it. It's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to reconcile that Satanism just came into this whole case strictly because of the neighborhood kids. Like that's absurd, right? Let's see. I wanted to finish this up real quick before we move on. Damien stated that he had met one person that he considered to be a priestess. He stated that the person he met was Deanna Holcomb, who he stated lived in Harbor Yard, Hardin Village area of Marin on Cabral Cove, I believe. He stated that she worshipped cats in what she did with her form of witchcraft. Damien stated that on Tuesday, May 4th, 1993, he was at home from when he got out of bed at about 10:30 to 11 a.m. until he got up at about 12 noon when he left and went to Lakeshore. He stated he had a lot of friends at Lakeshore since he used to live there with his stepfather, Jack Eccles. Damien was wearing a necklace that he claimed that he had just bought at the Mall of Memphis on the Saturday before this interview. The necklace had a pentagram as a pendant that Damien explained meant some type of good symbol for the Wicca magic that he was in. Okay, anyone that watched my previous, my first episode regarding Satanism basics, kind of talked about the sigil of Baphomet, and if you have, if it's the top of it is pointed down, so you have 2 points at the top, an inverted pentacle, then that is a pentagram, which is used to represent evil, the left-hand path, Satan. Whereas if you have 1 point pointed up towards the top and the 2 points pointing down towards the bottom, that is a pentacle, and that is used to represent good, faith, God, goodness, all of these things. So if he's wearing a pentagram, and I mean, he's just fucking with these cops at this point, making a statement like, oh yeah, this pentagram, it just totally, it represents goodness to my Wiccan warlock coven or whatever the hell. Like, okay. So either he is the dumbest occultist ever, or he is, he's pulling these guys' legs and leading them astray. Because a pentagram is not good even in Wicca. Let's see. Damien stated that on Wednesday, he was with Jason Baldwin and Dominique Tier, and that they had gone to Jason's uncle's house on Center Street in West Memphis. He couldn't give us a specific address, but said that it was near Alexander's laundromat, where he stated that he called his mother to pick him up. At this point, he's 18 and still calling his mom. Come get me. Okay. He stated that his mother picked him up along with Dominique Tier and took Dominique home. Dominique is Damien's girlfriend, who is pregnant with Damien's baby. Dominique lives in Lakeshore Trailer Park with her mother. Damien stated that after he and his mother dropped Dominique off, that he, along with his mother, Sister Michelle, and Father Joe Hutchinson, had gone to the residence of Susan Sanders and visited for a while. He stated that he was at their residence at about 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on that date, and after leaving the residence, he went home, where he stated that he got on the phone with Holly George, who he states lives in Bartlett, Tennessee. He stated that he got off the telephone with Holly after talking for a long time at about 11:30 p.m. that night. Damien stated that on Thursday, he went to Lakeshore, where he stayed with Dominique. He stated that he heard the boys were missing from Jason Baldwin while he was at Lakeshore that day. He then stated that he heard that the news that the boys were missing from Jason's mother. Now, this is an interesting part. Damien stated that Steve Jones from the Juvenile Authority had been by to see him a day or two before, and that Steve had told him about how the boys' testicles had been cut off and that someone had urinated in their mouths. He stated that Steve stated that could have been the reason that the bodies were placed in the water, so that the urine could have been washed out. Not only is that horrific and disturbing, so first he has like firsthand knowledge of it, but now he's blaming it on somebody else. Well, it possibly came from him. Damien had an opinion for who could have done the murders as being someone sick, and that it was some type of thrill kill. That's actually what Damien wrote down was, quote, thrill kill. He also stated that the penis was a symbol of power in his religion, known as Wicca. He also stated that the number 3 was a sacred number in the belief. Interesting, there were, 3 people convicted, 3 victims. I don't know. When asked about Jason Baldwin, he described a Jason Baldwin that lived in the West that was not his friend, Jason Baldwin. He claimed that the other was mean and that he had been known to kill snakes, which he claimed was just for the hell of killing it. This Jason was described as being about 5 foot 9 inches tall, 18 years old, and 300 pounds. He stated that he thought Jason was known to smoke dope, but he was not queer. Okay, what an odd thing to say. Let's see, we're almost done with this. Damien stated that he knew LG, that LG was a relative by marriage. He stated that LG was kind of weird in that on one occasion he wanted to trade girlfriends with Damien for a night. That's really weird because LG Hollingsworth is the cousin of Damien's girlfriend. Okay. Let's see. When asked if the water had any type of meaning, so these boys being dumped in the water. If that had any particular meaning in Wicca or black magic, Damien stated that water was a demon-type symbolism and that all people have a demonic force. He further stated that people have control over the demonic force in them. When asked about how he thought the person felt that had done the homicides, Damien stated that the person probably felt good about what he had done and that he felt good that he had the power to do what he had done. When asked why he thought the victims were so young, he stated that the younger the victim, then the more innocent the victim would be. That in turn meant that the more innocent the victim would be, the more power that the person would have gotten from the sacrifice. Damien stated he figured that the killer knew the kids went into the woods and even asked him, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I already read that. Let's see. Damien mentioned that he thought that it was scary that we were doing psychological profiles and that he was on an antidepressant that he said was amipromin. Interesting. So he claimed to be on an antidepressant, amipromin, most likely an early SSRI. Well, that kind of brings a whole new layer to it. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. When asked what he thought the person who killed the boys was feeling now, Damien stated that the person probably thought it was funny and that he didn't care whether or not he got caught. Oh, I don't know, kind of like the way that Damien's acting. Right? Now, mind you, the picture on the screen, this is literally Damien on his way to the first trial. And this is how he was acting towards the press and, everyone that was showing up for court that, he's going down for. So, I mean, this is, so once again, when asked what he thought the person who killed the boys was feeling now, Damien stated that the person probably thought it was funny and that he didn't care whether or not he got caught. Well, that motherfucker is caught in this photo. He looks pretty damn happy for somebody that's going down for murder. I don't know too many innocent people having a fucking ball at their, murder trial if they're innocent. Once again, dude, you're so edgy. Be careful. Don't cut yourself on all that edge. Give me a fucking break. Like, oh yeah. I mean, just look at that calm demeanor. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I will give it to Damien. He is smart. I think he's arrogant, which is why he was so willing to go out there and just flaunt this stuff, right? But he is highly intelligent. Definitely intelligent enough to a fault. Very methodical person, which is exactly how I've heard him described. This picture is actually Damien Eccles' trailer that he lived in with his mom and stepdad, and half sister, or maybe full sister, of which apparently he did not care that his stepdad was molesting his sister for some reason. Like, he knew about it and stated that he had no feelings about it. Wow, what a great person. Let's see. Damien stated that he felt the murderer would be someone local and that the person would not flee from the area. I mean, he's literally telling on himself. And granted, this is all down in official police records. The police didn't make this up. They recorded this. This is just a transcript of an actual recording. So he said these things willingly. So Once again, starting from the point that these people are innocent. I mean, that's a lot to swallow. If this person is innocent, right? Like, tell me I'm crazy for thinking that, but damn, this person's innocent, and it's like, if I was his lawyer, I would be pissed. I would be so pissed because now we have to fight against all of that. And granted, they ended up doing a good job, but not because of Damien, largely because of the documentaries Paradise Lost 1, 2, and 3. And eventually, I think Damien did, after being convicted and spending so much time in prison, he actually did kind of mellow out a bit and realized he probably shouldn't run his mouth. I don't know. Once again, he is a very methodical person, but it just seems kind of weird that he keeps bragging about all these things. Oh, the killer would feel like this. Why? How could you even conjure up in your mind what you think the killer would feel like? I mean, that's an odd thing to do when you're the one being brought in for questioning regarding the murders. Oh, I think the killer would feel like this. I think he would probably not leave anywhere and he would like it and it would be funny to him. While he's also making jokes. Okay, let's see. Lieutenant Sudbury then left the room and attempted to set up a polygraph examination to determine if he was being truthful in his statements. I asked Damien if he considered himself to be intelligent, at which time he stated that he thought he was very intelligent. Well, you're not that intelligent. What is that? The Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think you're actually smarter than you are? Yeah, it's Dunning-Kruger in full effect. He stated that he dropped out of school, but that he was self-taught and that he was very smart and more intelligent than most people. Well, you're arrogant, that's for sure. But that doesn't equate intelligence. Let's see. Real quick. Let's see. We'll get through. No, we don't need to go over that. Okay. In the post-test interview, the subject denied any involvement in this crime after making a whole bunch of jokes about being involved and having all this information. After approximately 45 minutes, I asked the subject, what was he afraid of? He replied, he being Damien, the electric chair. He then said that he liked the hospital in Little Rock, the mental hospital, mind you, that he actually was just released from just like right before these murders happened. Let's see. There's the knife that was found. Yeah, I apologize for not having all of this set up into a nice slideshow and everything, but these pictures were actually kind of last minute. Next episode, there'll be definitely something better. There we go. So this is actually, that picture is actually right after he was arrested. I believe this is his arraignment hearing. Basically like, we've got a hold of you now. We're charging you. Go to jail and wait until we tell you to come out, basically. Let's see. So Damien was asked what he was afraid of, and Damien replied, the electric chair. He then said that he liked the hospital in Little Rock. He said he had been treated there for manic depression. After a short period of time, the subject ceased to deny his involvement. Admission through absence of denial. He then said, quote, I will tell you all about it if you will let me talk to my mother. Detective Ridge brought his mother into my office to talk to him. After talking to his mother, he again denied being involved in the murders. After approximately 20 minutes, I asked, "You're never going to tell anyone about this but your doctor, are you?" He replied, "No." Okay, so once again, these statements were made willingly, abrasively by Damien on May 9th and May 10th. So once again, let's hit the timeline. May 5th, the boys disappear. May 6th, the boys' bodies are found. So May 9th and 10th is when he's making these statements. Talking about Satanists, talking about how the killer would be happy, and there's like all of this motive. He's applying motive to all of these, I guess speculation is what the defendants of that little bastard, the Innocents, would probably call it. Oh, he was just speculating. He was being funny. Funny, yeah, dark sense of humor, whatever. I mean, it's actually not funny though. And I have one of the darkest senses of humor, but the way in which he was doing this, that's not a joke. That's pretty abrasive and in your face. And then he makes the comment, the direct quote, that the killer would be happy. He would think of it as a joke and wouldn't care if he was caught. Right? Like, that's odd. And then dealing with the press. Yeah, that 18-year-old is being framed for murder because he listened to Metallica and wore black, right? Yep, he thinks it's just one big fucking joke. He's about ready to hit the electric chair. Or I guess Arkansas has the gas, or had the gas chamber, but nonetheless, I mean, this is your innocent man. This is a man who did not do it, right? It's just, once again, still trying to take it from the he is innocent, he is being framed position. All of this keeps adding up, right? Once again, if you would just take one statement that he made, okay, maybe off-color joke. Okay, a couple, yeah, he's dumb and doesn't know when to quit. But he makes these statements over and over, multiple times, to police officers who are questioning him about murder that he might be implicated in. And he gives this information that the medical examiners don't have at that point. It just keeps piling on. Now, my question is when people claim that these three men are innocent, why do they leave out these details? Because I think you have to. You have to, otherwise it is way, way too difficult to be able to justify their innocence. Because once again, it's okay, 1, 2, fine, whatever. 20, 30, 50, 60. A picture of you walking into your first arraignment hearing after you've been arrested, flipping off the camera, smiling and having a good time. And you're just, innocent. You're being framed. I would be distraught if I was being framed for murder. So let's go down the timeline. We'll start wrapping up here soon. But this is like, this section of the timeline is so crucial in my opinion, which is why we've spent so much time on it. Okay, so June 3rd, Jesse Miskelly Jr., 17, brought in for questioning, makes 2 statements which implicates himself, Damien, and Jason. All 3 are arrested after those statements are made. June 4th, 1993, Damien Eccles, Jesse Miskelly, and Jason Baldwin are arraigned in West Memphis Municipal Court by Judge Jones P. Rainey. Judge Rainey appoints temporary attorneys for the 3 murder defendants and schedules a hearing for Monday, June 7th, 1993. June 7th, 1993. Initial hearing in Crittenden County Circuit Court in Marion, Arkansas. Judge David Goodson appoints 2 attorneys, each to represent the 3 defendants. Representing Eccles, Craighead County Chief Public Defender Val P. Prince, and Jonesboro Attorney Scott Davidson. Representing Miss Kelly, Paragould Attorney Daniel T. Stidham and Gregory L. Crow. Representing Baldwin is Jonesboro attorneys Paul N. Ford and George Robin Wadley Jr. Let's see. June 17th, prosecutors file a motion requesting samples of blood, hair, saliva, tooth prints, and fingernails from Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly. June 25th, 1993, attorneys for Jesse Miss Kelly file a motion stating that compliance with the state's request to obtain blood, saliva, and hair samples from their client would be an unreasonable intrusion and would violate his constitutional rights. Now, on one hand, I mean, the state hasn't had the opportunity to be able to plead their case in front of a court, right? So, and just because you're a prisoner doesn't mean like you lose all rights. That's not how it works. However, I think that's interesting. An unreasonable intrusion. Well, there is enough evidence, at least to the judge at this point, to be able to hold you on murder charges. And it's not the final say in this, obviously, but an unreasonable intrusion. I mean, okay. This is now that we're getting into, the trial, the court stuff. And we will revisit the investigation next episode. We'll start off with the investigation, but we'll spend most of next episode going over the actual trial itself. However, there is a quote that William wrote here in his introduction that I think is incredibly important, and I want everybody in the audience to be able to remember this. Let's see. Okay. William wrote in his introduction, "Please realize at the outset of this narrative that defense attorneys are paid to vigorously defend their clients, both in and out of court. They consciously choose which evidence to emphasize and which to omit based upon how it affects both the public and in-court perception of their case. The experts are paid well to proffer their specific opinions. Quote, he who pays the piper picks the tune." So as we start diving into the actual court case itself and the arguments being made, and this goes for both sides, right? From the prosecution and the defense. However, it is, I think, more important to pay attention to that fact that the defense is getting paid, and their entire job and their paycheck is dependent upon making the best case possible for their client. And it's not like lawyers are exactly known for, being, not every lawyer, but that, all lawyers are just sparkling citizens that never lie. It's not like they have a reputation or anything. But this is something to keep in mind as the defense makes their arguments and, says things like about Miss Kelly that by the state taking hair, blood, and saliva samples, that's an invasion of his constitutional rights. Like, okay, I mean, so the fuckery begins early, I guess, like, um, I one thing I will say right here, as we start wrapping up, I got to apologize to all of you. Um, I didn't have the time to go through this website that I was kind of bouncing back and forth between as much as I would have liked to. Just because there's such egregiousness with some of the claims and framing, right? And this is good propaganda, is the particular framing, the omittance of particular information. I was hoping for something a bit more balanced. I knew it was going to be on this side of things. However, I didn't realize it was going to quite be like that. So that actually kind of threw me through a loop. However, there is some stuff. Let's see. See if we can get to this real quick before we get out of here. An entire page of the history of like how civilizations embrace Satan. Let's see. Okay, Satan in this investigation. Let's see. Okay, so this is a quote from the West Memphis Evening Times, May 11th, 1993. So a day after Damien has spent 2 days talking about being a witch or a wizard or a warlock or whatever other gay shit that he says. So he just spent 2 days doing that. And this is a quote from the West Memphis Evening Times on May 11th. Quote, authorities aren't ruling out anything in their investigation, as they shouldn't. Chief Investigator Gritchell said, including the possibility of gang or cult activity, though he said he saw no evidence of either. I mean, that's still pretty early on in the investigation. Now, let me ask you this. What's the difference between a gang and a cult? Not much. Not much. Maybe the attire. They all throw up weird hand signals, nonverbal communication. They partake in rituals. Street gangs are just a different version of a cult. There's initiation rituals and there's a very particular code in which you have to live by, and it's all very hush hush and secret, and it's literally the same thing, which is why a police officer would categorize a gang and or a cult in the same vein. Let's see. Although arguments would later be made to support the occult nature of the crimes, no such claims were represented in the early written summaries of the profile sent to the FBI. Well, why would there be? Because in the early stages of the investigation, they're not going to have a concrete belief that this was without or beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that it was occult in nature. So yeah, in their first communications with the FBI, why would they say, yeah, we know? It's like they haven't even begun really investigating it yet. They still had 3 weeks. There were no ritual markings or emblems found at the crime scene, nor was there any physical evidence that rituals had taken place there in the past. The mutilation of the bodies was savage but not systematic. That's one reason why I believe that this was a crime of opportunity, because it didn't seem like there was a lot of premeditation, and it was pretty sloppy. But that's weird. There were no ritual markings or emblems found at the crime scene. Why would there be? Why would there be? It's not like anytime a Satanist like walks by a campfire, he's got to like leave a pentagram. Like, it's, I don't, that's funny though. The things that people make up in their head about what they think a Satanist is And then they apply that and say, it wasn't a Satanist. Okay. I can tell you the entire time that I actually believed in that garbage, I think I left one in 10 years. And it wasn't like in a public area. I didn't spray paint it or anything. I was actually asked to. So obviously I was never involved in anything like this, but the point is, it's just like, if anything ever happens, then there's just going to be a bunch of ritual markings everywhere. It's like, no, because that's evidence. And people aren't stupid. If you're committing horrific crimes, you don't want to be caught, because guess what? There's no statute on there's no statute of limitations on murder, or some of these other horrific crimes that they are responsible for. Found at the crime scene, nor was there any physical evidence that rituals had taken place there in the past. Why would that matter? Any place can become a ritualistic site because it's not about the site itself. Granted, particular sites will give you more energy, make your magic work better, will make you feel better, it look cooler, all of these things, but literally anywhere could be a ritual site. Like, that's like, Christians can pray anywhere, can't they? Same thing with Satanists. They can perform a ritual literally anywhere. So that's a stupid statement. This is just an uneducated person making that statement. Just like, Satanists walk around in black and red robes, and, talismans just fall out from underneath them. And, like there's, I don't know, carrying around skulls, and they're just dropping them off places. Like, it's stupid. This is really stupid. And it's frustrating to read. So I'm kind of ranting here. There were those in the police who believed the most likely perpetrators were sexual deviants, transients passing through town, or a truck driver from the adjacent truck wash, the Blue Beacon. Another, even larger truck stop was just one more lot away. Sensibly, patrons' credit card receipts were collected and their names checked. The first suspects brought in for questioning were transients and passerbys, those who had raised suspicion during the door-to-door interviews, and those that were seen in the vicinity that night. But then they were cleared. Sure, they were suspicious initially. Then they weren't. As we dive into this case deeper and deeper, I mean, this is just somebody literally obfuscating the involvement of the occult. Literally, like, doing the work for us. It's like, don't look over here. There's nothing to see. Keep moving. I have the truth, and it's in the next room, so get moving. Like, that's what this is. And every single person I have ever met that has taken this position acts the exact same way. You can ask them questions about Damien's comments, his behaviors, his knowledge of the occult. All of these things added up, and there's more than what I just named, but you can ask them about these things and they just explain it away like it doesn't mean anything. And it's the thing I have learned being alive this long, which isn't a super long time, but I've learned at least a couple of things. And when somebody tells you who they are, you should believe them the first time. You really should. And when Damien says, I'm a witch, I practice black magic, Satanist, this, blah blah blah. I mean, he's wearing pentagrams plus everything else. And not to mention, he has an incredibly well-documented violent history. Killing small animals, attacking classmates, drinking blood, having many stays in state-run mental hospitals for various different diagnoses. I mean, And I'm not faulting him for that. Some of that he can't control. But I am faulting the people who are ignoring all of this and saying, no, 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 no. Damien, that sweet little boy that just liked heavy metal, that little boy, let's see. Gotta find a picture of him. That sweet little boy. Oh, look at that sweet little boy caring about what he looks like. That sweet little boy, literally, his only crime is listening to Metallica and wearing black t-shirts. Get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't know. I'm starting to get irritated. But that's honestly one of the reasons I have to look at this. We have to break down this case. Honestly, I don't even care how long it takes to be able to get through all of this. The reality is that whatever you want to call it, devil worshiping, Satanism, occult rituals, it doesn't matter what label you put on it. It is what it is. And it was very prevalent from the very beginning. We'll get into more about why I personally think all three of these boys or men are guilty. And I mean, they were technically convicted twice by the state and were still released. So that's interesting. Also, I mean, the company you keep, really? This fucking dude? That dude is a creep for sure. Oh, yeah. He's not an occultist, right? Not an occultist at all. So this is kind of what I wanted to address is the beginning of the claims of Satanism in this case, where it came from. And granted, we didn't look at every single little aspect of where it came from, but it's very clear that it didn't come from random comments from neighborhood children claiming that they saw men 2 years ago in Robin Hood Hills painted up, dancing around in robes. That's not where this started. And I mean, I think this is what's frustrating to me is because it's not like this information is hid. This is public information. It takes a simple, I would say Google search, but Google censors. Hop on Yandex, yandex.com, and just search West Memphis 3. You can find all of this readily available. None of this is a secret. So you have the people that are willing to look at the actual facts of what happened, what was said, put it in context, zoom out and look at it and call it for what it is. And then you have liars. I know it, I said at the beginning that we should look at it from the point of view that these men are innocent. And I'm still trying because I want to try and see, like, not even sure how to phrase this exactly. I want to try to just understand, like, are you a liar? Are you just that stupid? I guess naive, lied to, brainwashed? I don't exactly know. But wanting them to be innocent, looking at everything and then realizing, oh, this is really bad. Now, granted, okay, devil's advocate, and we'll get out of here. Just because somebody is in a cult, even a satanic cult, performs rituals, that doesn't mean that they committed murder, right? So there is obviously more to this. That's going to be for another episode. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to do that tonight. That is going to be a much deeper story. And I think next episode, we will probably bring up some more videos with Damien and the other boys, so people can hear from their own mouth the things that they say, the way that they act, because it's different watching body language. It's different knowing what was said in the past, what evidence was actually brought forth against them, what they've done since then, and all of these things put together. Once again, take anything individually, not a big deal. You put it all together, and what do you get? And I think that's kind of why I want to do this is we're going to break down every single piece and then zoom out and look at it together. So on that note, I think we're going to get out of here. So I would like to give my deepest, sincere thank you for everyone who tuned in tonight. Everyone that watches this on the replay. There's going to be a few more coverages of this case. We'll get into the nitty gritty. I also got William to agree to come back at least 2 more times so we can really get into the weeds of some of this stuff. So be on the lookout for all of that. Of course, I actually have another interview coming up tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that as well. I know I've just been going every single day at this point, but I have a mind control survivor who is going to remain anonymous, but they do want to come tell their story. So we're setting up an interview. It's going to be about 60 to 90 minutes, somewhere in between there. So I'm going to platform somebody who has experienced this firsthand from somebody with knowledge of how to create dissociative identity disorder, who had the intent of making basically a mind-controlled victim. So it's going to be really interesting. Tune in for that. We're also going to be doing another installment of looking at Laurel Canyon. I think we're doing that Sunday. Let's see. I think it's Sunday. Well, you can see it on my YouTube and everything. So just be on the lookout for that. Typically around the same time, 5:30 Mountain, 7:30 Eastern. If you want to support what I'm doing, head on over to ko-fi.com/rise to liberty. You can do a one-time donation or a monthly donation. You can also head on over to Buy Me a Coffee, because I need as much caffeine as possible to keep this going. I live off of caffeine and nicotine at this point. I'll take care of the nicotine, but I could use some help with the caffeine. If you were unable, for whatever reason, to help out financially, I get it. All you have to do is hit the like, share, subscribe. Feel free to cut these shows up. If there was something you like, clip it, post it on your social media. I don't care. Get it out there. Just give me credit is all I ask. Outside of that, anyone who wants to get something for a donation, you can just actually head on over to risetoliberty.store and go pick up some merch. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, make sure and go check out my Substack, which is Beware the Mockingbird Substack. So go check that out. I've actually got a couple of articles that are 99% done. So there's going to be a lot of content coming out there very, very soon. Do not miss it. And I think on that, we're pretty much out of here. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, stay free, my friends.